Chill here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Venus, our moon day, and the ascendant is approaching the moon at 3 degree Capricorn, moon 7 degrees Capricorn, midheaven 21 degrees Libra, and Venus ruling the midheaven at 16 degrees Libra. Now, I can't recreate the episode. It's already take three of that episode, and that episode that gone missing. Um, started with a lot of divination ascendant where I had the eureka that they're going to use the femicide agenda to try to take down Singapore, but take down Singapore, and through through whatever way women are treated in the prisons or women prisons and or hospitals. Femicide is a huge agenda because nothing can take down a government as quick as getting the governor or the government to basically not comply, basically comply with with femicide, okay, or to not comply with feminism, okay. That basically is, and the reason is because Venus Yin, this space of holding yang or water. This is why getting people to try to control the water. You know how Israel got swindled and maneuvered is by getting Israel to restrict water. And when Israel restricted water, both to its own citizens and outside, on an energy timestamp level, and the people that plan the decision making, okay, the people that plan the policies behind the policies, they know what I'm talking about. Because one way to take a nation down is to get it um, to unhold the yin. So there's nothing that holds the space for yang. Okay, if you want to hurt the men, basically hurt the women. There's nothing to hold the space for the men, and then the men go down. Now, if you want to take a nation down, you harm the water because when the water runs dry, everybody's nervous system gets lost, confused, murderous, and people begin to undermine themselves. But the thing is that everybody that uses that information to undermine somebody else is having even more megalittically destructurous results. Either they won't be able to enjoy their wealth, and or when the bubble pops, it's going to be gruesome. Um, Now, I'm here at the juncture of trying to remediate that gruesome for the Saturn Neptune and open venues and opportunities that are coming up as blue ocean, one megalithic blue ocean. And I really, really have to thank a couple of people. Annika Lucas, satanic ritual abuse survivor, trafficking cult survivor, and everybody in her podcast. Okay, there's a name I really want to say. We're waiting for her to get better, to get okay. It was a time where I thought that she's no longer with us, and I'm really, really waiting. And that name's definitely deserving a lot of credit. And of course, Mark Alandra, okay, satanic ritual abuse survivor, a Montauk survivor, um, completely. You know, this if there's one episode that everybody needs to watch is episode 9 by Annika Lucas podcast. Um, Yvonne as well, okay, Yvonne, and she has a podcast. She made a huge article in Dutch, okay. Um, Lars Royman, Hans Medema. I jab at Hans Medema a lot for calling his wife a whore, and I think he undermined himself because he could have broken through way more walls. Um, But Hans Medema is how I know about the programming beside Attica Lucas' testimony, um, and way more things. I know there are a lot of the testimonies that come out, the niece of Epstein, okay, and all these people that lay the infrastructure, and even Mark Dutroux, because Mark Dutroux wanted to speak about all of that, he just couldn't. And so, okay, so there's a lot of things. Yes, I'm not grateful for Mark Dutroux for being an Epstein, just like I'm not grateful for Alondra for being an Epstein. I'm grateful for the willingness to break down that chain It was then halted by Michel Nihoul, um, and a lot of things that, like no touch torture funded by classified projects, the declassification of MK Ultra, and all of these things um, that are really thanks to us switching from the century of oil into um, sovereign energy that requires sovereignty, and it happens by purging the taboo of Pluto oil and leaking the Neptunian, which is what I'm going to take to this episode, because the blue oceans that are opening right now are megalithic, and like every blue ocean, it doesn't open without the falling down of what the cracks in the wall that are creating those blue oceans. So let it be rest assured that the Rockefellers and any oil company, they are already tapping into every single thing that I'm talking about, probably way before I was even conceived, and I'm 41 years old. It's the people around, okay, that are going to be the leaves falling from the trees if they don't catch up to that information by the Saturn Neptune in zero Aries. And the first megalithic um, by the bubble pop that's popping, okay, and I thank certain ex-bankers for really pinpointing when it comes to the rituals, and they couldn't say everything, but the rituals around the issuing of currency, which is a lot of the basis of trade, around, and the rituals around the wealth consolidation, which Annika Lucas addresses, whether it's the Bilderberg and Belsen group, or um, or the oil companies, or the monarchy, and so on. Um, those those rituals are bubble pop. They're very connected to the minerals and the sadness story. The blue ocean that is opening up is clear energy around our real estate and energy. Okay, real estate is energy is real estate. Very simple, without fluffy wooey gooey wooey anything. Okay, people look at real estate in terms of the minerals and the gas and oil. We used to look at gas and oil. Now we look at the minerals that we can derive from that, and those minerals currently have another bubble pop, which is two things. One, the drug industry, where any drugs prescribed or not that interfere with absorption of minerals, okay? Saturn is going to sextile Uranus. It's already in the sextile. Everybody remineralizing their teeth. Have you seen the trend of everybody remineralizing their teeth, deriving from the probiotics that are derived from studying the Inuit community and how they treat their teeth? Okay, with the nutrition. So to the teeth, people are going to open up to these trajectories of, hey, doing currency, real estate, ritual, okay, with the clear slate, energetically, is going to sustain 12 millennia, because of the ingress of Sedna into Gemini. And we're talking cities here. Okay, we're talking cities. We're talking twin cities. We're talking something that can sustain. If people build and think, what would be the thing that changes everything and builds a 12 millennia legacy? That's the thing. That's Sedna. And that's the never before tried since the Inuit when it comes to the elite and the echelons in the known history, in what we know. So this is and this timeline meets a timeline of the Saturn Neptune in 0 degree Aries, which is real estate. Those that have the clearest venue on the real estate, no endochrome addiction, no, okay, no human trafficking needed, and no child trafficking needed, sexual sovereignty to the T, okay, no drugs prescribed or not that harm the absorption of minerals, okay, that type of thing. Um, seeing power in completely new way, because who had the power in the Sedna story? Not the father that trafficked the child to get demonic power, but Sedna that moved the oceans and the temperature that were ruling off the amount of fish that were actually available and the accessibility of fishermen to fish that knocked down an entire village. That was stronger in her, even not alive, that was stronger than the power that any endochrome, whether it's the Mayans or the Aztecs or the Inuit, any ritual of torture, okay, of infants, of children. And here we're talking completely clear slate, because those families that, whether it's monarchies, whether it's oil companies, whether it's bankers, okay, what I'm saying, they are probably already practicing. In fact, the fact that it energetically reaches me is meaning that they inside already practice that. And all the things that are going to fall like the leaves of the tree are the segments of the families, the segments of the wealth, the segments of the monarchy, the segments of the aristocracy that didn't catch up. Because this is where a 12 millennia trajectory meets a 248 years Pluto in Aquarius, rejuvenating what is set in stone, but also remineralizing our teeth. Okay, not quoting them with the white thingy to make it look nice, but to actually do the root cause of why are teeth yellow, why are teeth moldy. Okay, and and the trajectory of the Saturn Neptune on the world degree. That is, Saturn in Aries is completely new thinking of Saturn that now rules Pluto, which is sextile in Sedna. So we have a once in 1200, once in 248 years, and with Neptune, I think it's around the 500, once in half a millennia, once in 248 years, which is half the half, and once in 12 millennia, all conjoining. And this is the those that set in on the energetic trajectory of that blue ocean, they are the ones that gonna have the certainties that not the Gilded Ages had, definitely not the boomers, definitely not the monarchies had, not the Mayans, not the Aztecs, and in praxis, not even the Inuit to 2025. Okay? Now, it's big, but we also see how, and Pluto is out of bounds, which means that um, rejuvenating any taboos, things we never talked about. Okay? Definitely not with this openness. If anybody would talk about, let's say, pedophilia or extortion calls or whatnot, either they would be scrutinized, sent to the gulag or whatnot, or that would be in we should execute, we should this, which plays right into the hands of the extortion cults. Nobody unrooted that from the core to see the open trajectory. And this is in alignment with the energies that are changing. Now, people are gonna want land, and I see it in the we the people sector. I see it everywhere. People want land that's not imbued with ritual abuse. Okay, it's a course of transmutation. And the first thing is the halt of any ritual abuse. The halt of any ritual abuse in itself creates so much trajectory that we should not fear about the past or the history. Okay? Even when people talk about, and the best example with Saturn Neptune still in Pisces, lungs, but people stop smoking. Okay, their lungs gray as fuck, but the fact that they stop smoking already begins the process of the rejuvenation of the lungs. That can be, this damage can be undone. And a lot of things that we think people can't recover, it's going to be a chronic thing. None of that. Because when we address the core issue on a societal level, on a wealth level, on an energy level, then the thing begins to be undone on the level of interference that we needed to tackle. Then masses upon masses of people recover. That only adds to the trajectory. And this is what is happening in the world today. Masses of people need to tend to their teeth. They go to the teeth doctor, costs a fortune. None of them can afford to see. Now the algorithm targets them. They see, oh wait, what about this Inuit probiotics? Okay, then they look into the quality of the water. Well, what do I need to do to filter the water? Then they have some clay video going up. The algorithm is supporting, okay, is supporting that. Then the insights begin to arise. And so, just this, and you know, as I see that, probably each and every viewer sees a gazillion more blue oceans that open with that, because it really is transforming the energetics of the entire world, something we couldn't do on Tesla, okay? The original Tesla, okay? Um, as something that stood in the path of the Tesla. Now the Mormon blockade is beginning to disintegrate, and something that, you know, there are many trajectories where people had to be lifting. Okay, we talk about if we would do Nikola Tesla's energy back then, there'll probably be a megalithic debt of billions, because most of them would not be attuning to the sexual sovereignty that's in attunement with sovereign energy. Sovereignty, 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 sovereignty. Okay, so it's sexual sovereignty in spirit and in matter. Not having sex with children. The world not used to that. The world's not used to that. In fact, the world is so not used to that the Rockefellers and the Rothschild, they capitalized on the world not being used to that. And at the same time, everybody knows that this is wrong, to use it as extortion calls. And they gain power over nearly all the planet. Because if you set people up to child marriages, and then when they are 70, 80, 20, when they're about to Kissinger, you give them you give them the kiss of death and expose all of that trajectory, everybody knows that's very wrong. Now, nobody can say anything. You can't justify that. There's nothing that justifies that. But what do you do not to create that to begin with? And that's being used to kill billions, start a bubble, and then to the level that people align, okay, you pop that bubble, and people thinking that femicide is not such a bad thing because the Me Too went too far. And then they undermine it. We have another Googleplex death, money running in, land is clearing up, and for the ecosystem, that's okay. But the thing that sustains 12 millennia, you know, if you think about, there are many families that are now the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and are now building their lineage. And those people are already thinking. Those people, in their language, in their phrasing, in their astrologies even, they identify that. And then understanding that a balance of a yin and yang, that holding the pillar of the golden ages, even within, even as secluded, even covered by all those leaves, it's kind of like the tree that grows. Having the Lars shared the meme about, you know, you don't have to cut ties with toxic people, you just grow and they fall off. But this is exactly that thing. It's holding that pillar of the golden ages within, and those leaves that are of the aligning spirit of the times, those leaves are going to fall off. And then the inner, the inner trunk is just going to say, well, we knew it. We couldn't say it. And it's not about being Machiavellian. It's about, are people ready to hear that? When I was talking about the fact that circumcision is a pagan tradition, okay, to indigenous. Pagan, okay, that's fucked up. Indigenous or not indigenous, it's genitalia mutilation. Then I was told, rabbinical people agree with you. They just think that the public wouldn't accept, just like Abraham wouldn't accept that they have connection with the God without that part of the mutilation. That's what I was told. I was told the rabbinical people, they agree with you. They think that, but they wouldn't, they're afraid that the people don't think that. And then the people, they're afraid that the rabbinical people don't think that. Now, what about the Khazarian mafia? I don't know, folks. But anything that makes money by putting people into addictions and problems, first of all, it stems from helplessness. It stems from being disincluded. Think about the Sassoon family. It's not one person decided one day and said, oh, I'm going to be evil. There's a trajectory to that. Now think about the lack of balance of a yin and yang that exists in biblical or Abrahamic religions still. And you understand the misguided concept of choice in Judaism. I'm just gonna let that, and I talked about it in my previous episode. Like I said, it's not as fun as that previous episode, by the way. I can't recreate that. It's a different atmosphere. But those are absolutely the opening trajectories. Because when we talk investments in blue oceans, we can talk about everything. Because this is entrepreneurship. If you frame it that way, you understand that that's the thing that preserve legacies. There is a reason why the things that are important to us are important to us. Okay, take sexual sovereignty, for example. Is that a moral standard? No, it's not. There's an underlying reason why it's important, because it's the buildup of identity, because it's self-trust, because it's connection to our inner desire from not a shamed or shaming place, because it's connection and alignment with truth. There's passion for life. It's life itself. There's a reason why that matters. Somebody tries to harm that, they try to harm the entire nation. And this is true. Why I was watching an episode about, yes, rape of men in the Ukraine war. And the brave men that saw themselves as survivors, they talked about it. They came to the forefront and talked about that. And those things were used to undermine the sovereignty of nations. Are used to undermine. The Bilderberg and Belsen has a chiron wound just around this topic. Because there's the openness and awareness of how the sexual energy plays into world politics and worldly decisions, but there is a violation of that, which is why democracy doesn't democracy yet. And any form, what do you call it, democracy? What on representation, sovereign governance of a person, of every individual. Why am I not so supportive about the resting women? I'm all for rest, but the resting women, okay, agenda, whether it's black women or white women, because when a woman is resting. She's not. First of all, she's not really resting. She's taking care of the children, and so on and so forth. But the children are missing time with their dad or with their other mommy or whatnot. Okay, and that basically is an extreme polarity that might work for some. I'm not here to dictate people's lives, but it definitely takes out the ability to sustain an in touch connection with representation. If people don't try to run a business, they don't know what it's like to run a business. They don't create, they don't innovate, and it harms everybody. If people don't try to have a business model that can allow running a business as a sovereign individual person, as a one person's business, because each and every employee, think about the Gen Zers, is going to want to be an individual business owner that can cooperate in a sovereign way, less hierarchical way. Then they're out of touch with sovereignty. When I was going to academia, I said, in academic structure is absolutely not democratic. And by the way, they changed a little bit of the structure about the elections of the deans and the presidents um, after my satire. Okay, that came with the trajectory of many things. But and they went from innovation to excellency because of what I did to the innovation thing. Like I required for them to stand for the company's value, whether the company is an academic structure or not. And they took a step back and they changed the value. Talk about excellency. And so excellence. And so Ben Gurion University, if you're interested, one of the top ranking universities back then. Um, and so from that standpoint, it was very obvious. Usually we expect our governors to have a degree. Doesn't have to. Doesn't have to. And by the way, it shows nothing of competence if they don't. But if they were raised in an undemocratic school that have a lot of authoritarian, autocratian, and at the best case, what is it called where the people are meritocracy, okay? Which is such a bubble. It is true. When I was volunteering in supposedly developing neighborhoods, I spoke to the people who told me, fuck that. We were one of the strongest neighborhoods. Then came the municipality, broke everything down. I see now the gloves and the nails and the sacrificed cats, and I'm like, they're doing that shit again. And I know that because I spoke with the locals, not because I have a degree. No degree could prepare me for what these 50, 60 years old people that were living in those developing neighborhoods, so to sagen, were telling me. No, we talk about even my thesis in medicine. Nothing and no one could prepare me for a lady that was cooking for a student because her children were abroad, and at that time, at that year, she was cooking for the student. Her cancer did not progress and did not regress. It just halted. It just halted at a standstill for an entire year. Nothing and no one and no degree, holistic or not, in medicine, philosophy, nothing could compare to that moment of that clinical result that I just run into by joining that student for dinner with her. By chance. And yet when we grow our democratic, okay, politicians, and I'm not even in the extortion cults and death camps, it's like, wow. Okay? But even if we take it to the lighter version in the academic structure, the authoritarian meritocracy believing in academic structure, then they go and they have to do democracy, even without extortion cults. They were not skilled in democracy. And that's our representation. try to convince people, students at the university, that the people who vote to this party or that party are not, half of the degree was doctors trying to break indoctrination and show how the identity biases. In fact, one of our department got a Q1, got a big megalithic career in the United States where voting patterns were the thing, and he touched at the core of identity as a voting pattern. And I'm not talking identity politics. I'm talking about people that their families voting this way. Now, the Bilderberg and Belsen were capitalizing on the erotic energy, but the erotic energy was not sovereign. Forget extortion calls for a slight bit of a second. They were capitalizing on something that they know matters, and on the money line, if you need to be the candidate and promote a policy, those are the cards. They're like, okay, if a person uses that card, they have the energy card. If a person doesn't use that card, some other person will. And this is why sexual sovereignty is so important, because that's sustaining to that card. And as a civilian, I can tell it's about to be elections in both countries. Sexual sovereignty in spirit and in matters, supporting, teaching, infrastructure, everything that stands for that is another megalithic blue ocean. Remember, after the Me Too, the booming of the tantric business. They were the fakes, they were the this, they were the that, but the ones that sustained were the real ones.
Hello.
Okay, the uptick in jade eggs, which later led to us looking at the minerals and the ethics of the mining from the chain of production that nobody looked at but some hippie 60s people. That they were selling crystals, and like they didn't want to sell those crystals, so they sold the other crystals. The new age, those were the, okay. But it's true. When did the world really begin to acknowledge crystals? And who were the vendors? Now, Saturn's sextile Sedna. Everybody learns from the Inuit how to do deep health. And it's not about coating it in white. It's not about coating. It's what's underneath. Because that thing plays to overgrowth of yeast. And then all the, when it comes to the water, the buildup of whatever that gets to the heart and the arteries and literally kills people. The nervous system, the susceptibility to mononucleosis, cancer, holistic perspective, the skeletal structure affected by the level of absorption or the lack of minerals. Don't rape children, don't traffic children, don't rape people. To the T. And there's no doctors. I just saw an advertisement of a dentistry. Needed a sales shark that is going to close between 1 million in 1 month shekels, Israeli shekel. The Israeli shekel is strong. You'd think $350,000 a month closing in a small dentistry in a sideways city in Israel. Israel is not big. Their cities are not megalithic. It's a lot of money. And that person is going to have to sustain that because they're going to have certain lifestyle with that money that they're going to want to sustain. And we're talking about addictions, which of course harm the teeth. Do you feel safe going to the dentist? So this is where people begin to look at now. My generation, the generation of Neptune and Saturn signs, is beginning to have the Neptune squares. All of us need to remineralize our teeth. None of us have reliable doctors. Saturn, Saturn teeth, Neptune, Arzt, okay, medicine, MDs, okay, the teeth doctor. And the holistic teeth doctor. Then I've never seen so many advertisements about litigation regarding medical negligence when it comes to dentistry as I have seen in the past several years. So this is also where people are when Saturn is ruling over Pluto. It started in 2008, and now, but the Neptune's Saturns are having their Neptune squares. Saturn's still ruling over Pluto for the next 20 years. It's rejuvenation of what is set in stone. The White House has been half bombed, false flag or not. They're rejuvenating. They're doing renovation in the White House. Every social media, open social media, every single person that opens social media knows of how oil wars operate, even if they didn't grow up in a death cult. That's unprecedented. And people, when we talk entrepreneurship, this is when we talk about all the things that are. The more we talk about the embarrassing things, the more we tap into the blue oceans that are there. The endochrome addiction. The ones that tend to that, the ones that alleviate people from the endochrome addictions, they solve a big problem of the upper echelons. Some people say, surely that's what you do. Well, I began to I tell you about the series of questions that I asked. Okay? While being budgeted on welfare alone. Because I try to run a business, a single person business, okay? I said, it is a set of questions, okay, that's solider than diamonds, than ethical diamonds. What is, okay, what do I need? Or what would it look like to build the company that I would be happy to be an employee in? Because anyway, I would be an employee cutting salary from the dividends of my company. If inspired, and the next one is inspired by attorney and astrological magician Christopher Warnock. and from his wealth talisman, stealth wealth talisman, if my wealth is a leaf in the tree,
שלום, שלום לך. בוקר טוב. אמא בתיאבון. קודם כל, סלחו לנו על ההפרעה. מי שלא מכיר אותנו, שמי בן שחר, זה אח שלי אליהוד. אנחנו שייכים לקהילת העבריים בדימונה.
You're live. You're being broadcasted. You want to say it in English?
Wait, you gotta wait. למי שלא יודע, עשו את תהליך הגירוש של קהילת העבריים.
Okay, it's about the Jewish Hebrews, just black Jews. They're about to be deported. And they were and they're trying to build on the fact that they're recruited to the IDF. They were promised citizenship and they're about to be deported. And this is after 30 years of being promised citizenship. And they're trying to fundraise to stay in Israel. Basically to have citizenship.
מי שלא יודע, הקהילה שלנו יותר מ-50 שנה בארץ. למרות שממליצים שנטוס מכאן, אנחנו אוהבים את הארץ ואת העם שלה, שבנויה מעדות שונות. מי שמעוניין או מעוניינת בלעזור ולתרום במאבק שלנו, תרימו יד, אנחנו נבוא...
And by the way, they're situated around Dimona, which is the textile factory.
וגם קבלים מזומן ונותנים קבלה, ולכל השאר שוב פעם, סלחו לנו על ההפרעה, אם הפרענו. המשך נסיעה טובה.
Okay, so yeah, that's something that happened on the train. So this is a topic in Israel, if anybody is interested in that topic. Now, it just happened. What can I say? That's the lovely thing about live broadcasts that I love. Okay, not every detail is controlled and planned. But some people find it very difficult. By the way, particularly politicians, because Pluto is about power and control. But this is also where adaptability is very important. The control over the message where people have to broadcast, let's say before elections, versus the need to be adaptable and the need of representation for civilians. And the fact that to get the attentions of civilians, you sometimes needed to be the celebrity politician, and now that's being changed with the Pluto in Aquarius, or applying to Gen Zers. I actually saw a conversation about Taylor Swift, and the meeting between Taylor Swift and Gen Zers that weren't necessarily relating, and this is indeed a challenge. For me, I'm not trying to be relatable to people that I don't know. I just post my authentic self and my authentic things that I appreciate about the younger generation. And I can't control of how would I be perceived in that sense. But I'm used to that. People are not used to not being able to control how they're perceived. And yeah, those people have way more challenging time in that regard. Now, back to the megalithic bubble, the bubbles that are popping, which is everything that's not in alignment with remineralization, with sovereign energy, and with sexual sovereignty. I know that can be misleading because usually, those people that are those people that are addicted to something, it takes time to deal with the fact that the bubble popped, and they're going to have to learn completely new coping mechanisms. And each and every one of us is going to have that in their own trajectory. Now, if you wonder about real estate initiations that are free of satanic abuse, currencies that are free of satanic abuse. This is a booming sector. And some people are still afraid, challenged, don't know how to let go of that previous timeline. Um, which again, people say, hey, that's what me, Shirley, the broadcaster, is doing. Well, I began with talking about the questions that I asked. They got me to where I am. And another question that I asked was, how can I solve the problems of those that have the resources to use that to solve the problems, to use the dividends to solve the problems for the people that don't have the resources. Now, if addiction to endocrine is the problems of those who have the resources, then tending to that problem, free of shame, people were born into those trajectories, is going to, and it's basically an addiction. Okay, that an addiction now is a very shameful addiction because they get it from torturing babies even. So there's a lot of but if we don't talk about that, people will never gain their sovereignty in the face of that, and will never actually be rid of the extortion cults, the dark politics, the perpetual Hamas Spartan, or with perpetual Mein Kampf marketed as Sparta, and and the everythingness that's abound to that. Okay, there's our classified projects money going to planning the next political assassination and economic hitmanship. And that's a bubble that pops because every empire fell because of those trajectories. They were building on a bubble, and when you build on a scam, the scam has a lifespan. If you're lucky enough for your scam to balance the ecosystem, like the Dutch stealing silver from Spain and having silver in the hands of the bank causes inflation. So that was balancing the ecosystem. Maybe by chance, maybe not, but that was allowing the building of a lot of Dutch things that we know today. Some people, Mr. Fong said they think we're in the opium war again. What do you mean they think? But the fact is that what is changing, and this is something Mr. Fong didn't talk about, okay, because China has a role in that. And why was China susceptible at 1901 at the Opium Wars? Because of the belief that the sky punishes the land. The sky that punishes the land loses the mandate of the heaven, and that's what happened. Susceptibility to addiction because there was not a yin to hold yang. What is the high that's being generated by any high drug? Something that is the approximation of love, happiness, joy. Now, the extortion cults try to make people feel elated feelings about torturing and harming people, which is the megalithic bubble of particularly the century of the century of oil, but also the century of Gladio, and where drugs and power infused to create that illusion of power that is now about to pop. The Saturn Neptune is the first phase of the pop, where we're going to complete into the Neptune squaring Pluto, which is the fall from the illusion of the century of oil and drugs and child trafficking. All of these things existed before. They were creating different situations before. And every time it popped with kind of like the same scenario. Nobody wants to trade certainty, replacing the energy, going back and forth with the gold and or silver standard, exposing the child abuse every single time. Now, are we going to play into extortion cults? Or are we going to tend to the core issue? And the core issue can be denoted by Sedna, which is the very Aztec Mayan endocrine rituals. It's the most embarrassing addiction to talk about because it's embarrassing to the chemical and it's the component of the blood infused by adrenaline in the tortured as pure energy as possible, which would be infant, observed, absorbed, and consumed to bring elated feelings by this horror to supposedly raise up demonic powers. It's not supposedly even. That's pretty embarrassing. That's pretty embarrassing. Now, when people grew up into that, every cell of their psyche knows it's wrong, but they were surrounded by that. The Mayans did it, the Aztecs did it, everybody with a big legacy did it, and then, of course, they got extinct, leaving only a cookbook. Not even a talisman's book. Oh, about that part. Now, it's very embarrassing talking about an entire financial political system built around appeasing that endochrome addiction to gain power. Getting China addicted to poppy seeds, man, that's opium. Man, that's nothing compared. Like, that was allowed. Why did people believe that the sky punishes the lion? That endochrome. Now, if we tend to that and break free from that addiction, this opens a legacy of 12 millennia. Loosening of the fist, okay? The loosening of the grip. The easiest people to manage are sovereign. I would say, oh, but nobody will need like royalty. Nobody will need like, what do we do about that? People tend to, and here's the thing, think about a relation. People tend to enjoy relation when they are sovereign. And people pride themselves a lot. For example, Netherlands inspired the United States, Vogue inspired the United States. And they use that to create the world's citizens. Everybody knew that holding a Dutch passport is not holding a Dutch passport, it's holding a citizen of the world passport. That's something, okay? That's an idea that is relatable. And consequently, it created alliance with the Dutch language, alliance with the things of the nation, because they symbolize that which is the world. Now, when that doesn't amount to on the money time, then Dutch people are not afraid. They looked at that NATO summit. It says this Gestapo, and they dedicated an hour to circle the Gestapo and talk about the traffic people used in those world consolidation summits in The Hague, which is of course exciting because they happen in Netherlands and so on. Each and every country would have dealt with that trajectory. So when it comes to, and you think about who are the monarchs that are actually remembered. Everybody remembered, hey, that person was good with their people. And to sustain that, it takes sustaining sovereignty in the 12th house, which is in the bedroom. that endochrome thingy. The ones that tackle that endochrome thingy, they are going beyond the Aztecs and the Mayans and even the original Inuit. Now, are we going to be, shameful and secretive about the fact that this is existing, or shaming and bashing, or are we going to see the blue ocean that's opening up here and see how megalithic is the opportunity? Because those that do are going to cash in on that. And it's not about currency, it's about resources, it's about life, it's about the ability to love regardless of being powerful, okay? Because people usually think, when I get more money, then I'll be safe and free. And then you're like, well, you're going to have to defend the airspace. You're going to have to defend the land. You're going to have to defend the natural resources underneath the land, okay? My Pluto square was about shared power. It was like reimagining, okay, shared power and how everything is balanced and so on. It's like, well, that power that you're talking about is those people are addicted to endochrome. Okay, that's not actually power. We need to rethink power. It's not about sharing that power. It's about rethinking power and venuing in. And oh, I'm so lucky to be living in this time because Saturn and Neptune are meeting on the world degree, and Saturn is ruling over and out of bounds Pluto in Aquarius, French Revolution, American Revolution time, all while in harmony with Saturn and Uranus, which is Civil War o'clock, which is where it's becoming financially best option to give workers' rights and women's rights and everybody to have the right to participate in trade. Back then, because people could tax them. And now everybody's remineralizing their teeth. Obviously, they won't be able to get a good teeth doctor if they support and fund the surveillance tech. Also true to nations, okay? Netherlands can buy China chip company, but if what they're doing with that is another Palantir NVIDIA type of thingy, not gonna stand, it's not going to be well to the teeth, so to say. They can put gold around their teeth, but what's underneath? And that's not something that any coating can solve. It can solve the appearance, the image, but not the actual legacy. It's not gonna keep the empire from falling down, from going Pompeii. East and West. Now, either people are going to see that trajectory, and those that go align that trajectory, that sustains, okay? And I can tell you, because I've been through a decade, that had I gone swayed a little bit to anything, had I swayed a little bit from that truth, I would not be here today. And all the tactics and war tactics of those their side coping mechanisms, they could not sustain that truth. They had to create the approximations, whether it's megalithic Google trillionaires that had to pay women, okay, for their child, settlements of megalithic litigations, and they come from Mormon cult, so they have to, they had 14 of them. If one of them did that, and she has to leak it herself, because anyway that would be leaked. Housing projects with people that will also own land. Well, the rituals around conception, rituals around currency. Can't work for the light and for the dark both together. When we talk about an issuing of bits of joy, I named the entrepreneurship Beats of Joy. Can't be with the light and the dark, has to be with the light. Just standing to that is freaking amazing.